Good day everyone, Mr. Cargill here with our next AutoCAD video. Now for this video we're going to be looking at the Cape BMED Unit 2 IA. Alright, so we're going to go through an example of an IA, what is expected, and we're also going to go through the IA mark scheme and all of that. Alright, so we already did I already did a video explaining the CXC or the CSEC technical drawing SBA and also the BMED Unit 1 IA. Alright, so today we're going to look at the BMED Unit 2 IA. So here, let me just zoom in a bit. Alright, that's good. Alright, so we're looking at the different components. So the composition, what should be in your IA portfolio. Now let me just start off by saying that the Unit 2 IA is going to be different than any other IA you would have done so far, or SBA, because for technical drawing that is. And the reason for that is because it requires a lot more writing. Alright, so you're doing like a report. So it's not just drawings, you're doing drawings, but you're also doing writings and you're doing a report on your findings that you would have found when you were completing your IA. All right. Now, it has three different phases. Phase 1 is conceptualization of the project. Phase 2 is design of the project, and phase 3, which is the work program, which includes the methodology, the resources, and the schedule. And we're going to go through all of these things. Now right here it says students will be assessed on completed assignments at each phase. The design portfolio must be CAD based. Alright, so the design portfolio must have some AutoCAD drawings with evidence of the acquisition of knowledge and skills gained at each phase. So when it comes to the evidence, that is where your report comes in. So it's not just about having the drawings. You will have your report. So let's say, for example, you're designing a house, or let's say you're designing a house or an apartment building, and there should be evidence. Evidence would be in form of your sketches and also in your initial reports, when you would go through and you would have that in your writing to say that this is how I came up with this idea. We looked at different apartment buildings, we did some research, and based on the research, this is how we came up with this finished product. All right, so at each stage you will have evidence, and that will be in writing. So that's why the report is very important, because the drawings alone won't cut it, because we need the report to show that you actually did the work and you didn't just get the drawings from somewhere, and it's not just something random. You put your thoughts into it. So that is why the report is important, and most of the marks will be allotted to the report, so it's very important. All right, here it goes on to say a complete record of the proposal. All right, pictorial and working drawings, freehand sketches, specifications, calculations, and final design solutions should be kept in the design portfolio. The design portfolio will be assessed by the teacher, and a sample of the document will be assessed or reassessed by a moderator appointed by CXC. All right, so what this is saying is that everything that you have will be a part of the portfolio. All right, so your sketches, your proposals, your working drawings, your freehand sketches, your reports, and everything will be a part of your portfolio, and that will show that this shows work over time. All right, so the portfolio will show the work that you would have done over time, and that's what they want to see in the IA. They want to see your thought process, how you went about solving problems, how you went about selecting materials, the different calculations that you did to come up with your building materials or your building design, and all of that. So they want all that information. Now it says each student must prepare a technical report, which is one of the most important part, if not the most important part of the project. I went too far. So each student must prepare a technical report on the project and make a presentation of is our final design solution in class. So other than all the drawings that you have to do and all of that, you will also have to do a presentation in class. Okay, so you'll do a presentation, you will share your findings, share everything from when the project just started, going through the projects and your final design solution, how you came up with that final design solution and everything like that. Good. And I'm going to show you an example of such a presentation. So now, how are the marks allocated? So this is how the marks are allocated. It says there's one assignment in the design portfolio which is worth 60 marks. So it's just one big assignment and everything is worth 60 marks. So each mark carries a lot of weight, because for unit 1, it's the IA is marked out of 120. But in unit 2 it's marked out of 60. So if you just lose like 2 marks in a 50 out of 60, that is a lot more detrimental than getting 118 out of 120. So it's important to get as many marks as possible. All right, so phase 1, you get 6 marks for the conceptualization of the project. Phase 2, you get 10 marks for design of the project, and phase 3, you will get 6 marks for the work program, the methodologies, and so on. That's for the development phase of the project. Use of CAD, just for the use of AutoCAD, you're looking at the drawings and see how well you would have used the software. You will get some marks for that also. You get 6 marks for that. The project report, as I said, that's why it's very important, because you get 16 marks just for the project report. All right, so it is a very important aspect of the portfolio. Contents of the portfolio, just for having everything that you should have in the portfolio, you will get 8 marks. The interactive presentation, so just for the presentation by itself, you will get a next 8 marks. All right, commands, use, and electronic copy of final display must be submitted. So what this is saying is that you will submit an electronic copy, which is like a soft copy, and you'll also submit a hard copy for the SBA. So this right here, what this does here is to break down the marks even further. But before we break down the marks even further, I'm going to show you an example of a presentation for the Unit 2 IA. Now, for the IA, each teacher, of course, will give you a different IA. You could be required to design anything. You could be required to design a single house. You could be asked to design a housing complex. You could be asked to design a mall, a shopping mall, or something like that. So it can be anything in terms of building. And each teacher will give you different specifications and requirements and stuff like that. So I'm going to show you an example of a presentation. And for this presentation, the IA question that I gave my students it was a house, and it was for a couple that, they've been married for a while and they had a baby on the way, and they were thinking about getting a place. They had some money in their savings, so they could afford to get a decent place. And so that is what I gave them for this question. So now we're going to look at a presentation from that, or for that. All right, so here, and this was done by a student last year. So this is the PowerPoint This is a PowerPoint presentation. So the presentation that you'll do in class to say that to show all your findings and stuff. So the presentation is kind of like you're presenting your report, while you will still have the written report as well. All right, so for the first slide, the student put back the problem statement, and it's important to have the problem statement because as we go through the mark scheme, you will see where it's important, where you get marks for the problem statement and so on. Just for stating what the problem is, you get some marks. All right, so then goes on to the objectives and tell you what's in the portfolio, the sketches, the justification of the final design, the building materials. So you went about selecting building materials, the procedure of construction, the cost estimations, and so on. All right, and you could have more things in your presentation as well. All right, let's move on. All right, so here now we have the sketches. All right, so over here now we have the sketches, and we're going to look at the sketches. So the sketch will show that this is something that you would have been doing over time. This is something that you would have been doing over time. All right, so we have the different sketches. So this is one of the sketch. So you put that in a presentation, and you can talk about your sketch to say that this is one of the sketches that I came up with, and you can, you know, speak to whether or not this is one of the sketches that you actually used, or if you use a different sketch. All right, so this is like for a lower floor, and I guess this is the upper floor of that same for that same lower floor. And then this is a different sketch. This is sketch 2 as it says here, and this would be the lower floor plan for sketch 2. I normally tell my students to come up with like 2 or 3 sketches. The student came up with 2 sketches, so that's a lower floor and then an upper floor, and they have that in the presentation as well. And then now she's going to speak on the final design. So in the report, she would have made mention of which design she ended up going with, whether it was sketch 1 or sketch 2, and why she chose whatever design she chose. All right, so yeah. And then now, with that now, we should move on to the different building drawings. All right, so what we're going to do now is to look at the working drawings. So as a part of the presentation, of course, you'll have your working drawings, your floor plans, and so on. So right here we have the floor plan included, and in your presentation, you know, you can just show your floor plan and talk about your floor plan. And this is very good. This is very good practice, because, you know, as an architect, an engineer, or, you know, anybody within that field, when you design something or you create something, you have to explain, you know, talk about your drawings, talk about your you know, anything it is that you're going to be making or creating, why you did it the way you did, and all of that. So this presentation kind of prepares you for that. All right, so we have the lower floor plan, we have the upper floor plan as well, and you just talk about the floor plan, why you designed it the way you did, in order to match the problem statement, because you're designing it for a couple that's expecting a baby. So I think that like a baby playroom or something downstairs. You have your roof plans or side plan, and you'll have your elevations. This person went with a very modern design for her building. You have your different views for the elevation. You have a sectional elevation as well. All right, so I cut through the building. You show the inside. There was a study, dining, kitchen, bathroom, and stuff like that. Talk about your presentation, why you chose to design your building the way you did, and all of that. All right, and this person went ahead to create like a model, a virtual model of the building and what the building would look like. It's a very nice, clean, and modern design. All right, and then this kind of, if you know, incorporate this, something like this in your presentation as well, that's very good, you know, because it's like a pictorial view of what it is that you're trying to make and you're trying to create, and it kind of brings across your drawing even more, or your design even more. All right, so you include all those things. This is just the next view of what the building would look like from a different angle. And then you talk about your building materials, you know, different building materials that you chose. Why did you choose those building materials? You are going to talk about budgeting as well, talk about the cost also. So the materials involved would be stone, steel, concrete, wood, and anything else that you choose to use. You talk about where you use those materials. So the foundation here, you know, the foundation is a concrete slab. material that is used to design that. They use steel framing, and it says why steel. So you would explain. So in a presentation now, you would explain why you chose steel frame instead of like a concrete frame, or even a wooden frame. All right. You have prefabricated concrete panels. You would explain why you went with that instead of an in situ concrete panel, meaning in situ meaning built on site. Stone veneer, probably went with that as a design feature because it looks very good. Bamboo flooring, which is very interesting, because bamboo flooring is cheaper, and it gives you a nice hardwood type of look, but it's a lot cheaper than actual hardwood. So this is a good design choice, and then you will explain why you went with everything that you went with. All right, so then now after the flooring, you have different things like your stairs, how you design your stairs, why you design them the way that you did, and everything like that. This stairs is just a picture. This isn't like the actual stair design. Stair design was the standard flat, straight, rectangular stairs, because of course there is going to be they're having a baby and stuff like that, so you don't want them to be traversing stairs like these with a baby, right? So you have to take all of that into consideration. Type of door, aluminum door and window frame, justify your choice. Why did you go with aluminum instead of any other building material? All right. Timber doors, why did you choose timber doors? You explain the process as well, because this is something that is different for grade 13 as well. It's not just understanding the drawings from like an architectural perspective, but also from a contractor perspective. So you learn how to not just design, but how to build and how to plan, and what happens and how you go about building the actual structure, the entire process. All right, so right here we have our what this right here explains. It basically explains what happens in a step-by-step process. So what happens before what and all of that stuff. All right, because certain things have to happen before other things can happen. So for example, you can't mix the concrete for the foundation before you dig the foundation and stuff like that. So it's just a sequence, and it shows what happens before what and how long it takes. So the first thing is the site preparation, which is going to take 7 days, and then that is followed by the installation of the main concrete floor, and so on and so forth. But you'll learn about this in grade 13 as well, how to do all of this thing, because there are certain things that you can do together. You can do them at the same time because they don't depend on each other. So you can paint the outside walls while you are putting in the flooring in the inside, because in the interior, because those two things won't really interact with each other like that, so they can be done at the same time. So there are certain things that you can do at the same time, and this is what we call an activity network diagram. All right, it explains what comes before what and everything, and you explain all of that. And then there's like a little formula for the activity network diagram that actually shows and calculates everything, and you'll know how long it will take to complete the entire project based on how long each thing takes. So right here, this is the activity network diagram. So it shows where it starts. You have your different sequences, what happens before what, and so on. So like here, H, and this is I depends on H, but J doesn't depend on I. So I and J can happen at the same time, because I over here so shows carpentry, and F so shows fixtures and stuff like that. So depending on where, it can be done at the same time. All right, so here you have your cost estimations. You go through how much each thing will cost. You show the price for like a bag of cement, and then you will talk about how much of that you think you're going to use for the project, and then you will come up with a cost estimation. It doesn't have to be accurate, even in like outside of just like school or anything like that. In actual building construction, the budget is never 100% spot on. You know, there is always just an estimation between here and here, somewhere in that range. All right. So you talk about the cost estimation for the different things, how much it will cost to do the land excavation, to do the concrete foundation, to do the bamboo flooring. You go through how much you think each thing might cost, and you know, you go through all of that in your presentation. And again, as I said before, the presentation is like it's like the report is written, and then the presentation is just you explaining the report basically. So all of this will be in written form in your reports. All right, now, so you go through all of that, you explain everything, all your costs and all of that. All right, and you can do a summary. All right, good. So that is your presentation right there. So now that I've gone through the presentation, what I'm going to go through is the mark scheme. I'm going to go through the mark scheme, and I'm going to explain how your marks are going to be allotted. I already did like a vague thing on that, but I'm going to go through the more detailed view. So let me just zoom in on this a bit. All right, so here it says that for the phase 1, which is the conceptualization of the project, where you're actually coming up with your ideas and so on. It says in this phase, students are expected to seek the guidance of their teachers and engage in research that will inform the conceptualization of the project. So you speak with the teacher, you tell them about what you want to do, how you want to go about solving the design problem, and then you work with the teacher, and then you come up with your designs and so on. So now, if what you do is good, if you demonstrated a comprehensive understanding and good insight of the different concepts, you get between 5 and 6 marks. And once you talk to your teacher about what you want to do, you come up with your design, you should be getting all those marks. If it's not so good, if it's just satisfactory, you get between 3 and 4. And if it's limited, if it's kind of lacking, then you get between 1 and 2. So this mark scheme is it's a bit objective or subjective, because what's the difference between good and satisfactory? And that's down to the teacher. But yeah, that's the way the mark scheme is. All right, so you get that for the conceptualization of the project. And then for the rest of the project now, rest of the mark scheme here, for the design of the project, actual design, and it's 10 marks total, maximum. It says in this practical phase, students are expected to work closely with their teacher to complete their project. So this is where you actually do your drawings and so on. So your sketches, your detail working drawings, your assembly drawings if it is mechanical, application of the different theories and all of those things. So this is where you actually do all your drawings and everything. And remember, all the drawings that you're doing, you're going to have your report as you go along. You write about your floor and your roof and stuff like that, where you design a building the way that you did. All right, good. All right, and then once you have that, if you do that to a high degree, you'll get between 7 to 10 marks. If I want to give someone marks between 7 and 10, I'll give them the higher end and the higher end, because once it's good, it's up to the teacher to choose between 7 and 10. And if they can get 7, they can get 10. All right, work program. So the report must include statement of approach or methodology. All right, so what you're doing in this now, and this is like what is expected in like your report and stuff like that. So how did you go about solving the problem? What were the different methods that you used? How did you go about carrying out your research? How did you go about selecting the different materials? How did you go about designing everything the way that you chose to design it? All right, so you explain all the methods and your methodologies in your report. All right, you have to make mention of the different resources used, whatever books, whatever software you use, AutoCAD and anything else that you would use, what equipment you use, and all of that information. How did you go about scheduling a task for each phase? All right, so that can be explained with the what's it called, activity network diagram. You know, it shows you what happens when and so on and so forth. And if you do that and you do it well, you get 6 marks for that. Use of CAD. Everyone should be getting full marks for this. It's AutoCAD. At this stage, at grade 13, you would have been using AutoCAD since probably grade 11, most likely. Probably before that, probably in grade 12 at least. So you'd be more familiar with AutoCAD right now. So just so you go about using AutoCAD. Your drawings, if it's greater than a 90% complete, to like if your drawings are completed at like more than a 90% degree of accuracy, then you get your 90%. Okay, so that works as well, and you'll get your 6 marks for that, just for doing your drawings correctly. You get your full 6 marks there. And then the project report, now the overall report, the report is worth a lot of marks. See right here, the total is 16 marks total for the report. So project proposal, statement of purpose, or definition of problem. So what you're going to do when you start off your report, you start off with your proposal. What are you proposing, or you're going to go about solving a problem? And the first thing you can do is to write a problem statement. So the problem statement is that, you know, you're trying to design a building for a couple that have been working and saving for a number of years, and they have a baby on the way, and that's the problem. And you're going to think about how you can go about solving that problem. All right, and you write how you propose to go about solving that problem. So it's a concise, aligned with the design problem. It has to be aligned with the design problem. You can't be designing for like an elderly couple and you're going to have like narrow staircases made out of glass or something like that, and their bedroom is going to be upstairs and their bathroom is going to be downstairs and they have to be up and down the stairs or something like that, you know. So it has to be in line with whatever the design problem is. All right, so statement of project scope and specifications. So you basically talk about how you're going to be solving the problem, how long you think this might take, what are the different specifications involved in the project. Okay, constraints and limitations. Within everything there are going to be limitations. So you talk about limitations from the perspective of what were the different limitations that you have in completing the project itself, and also in completing the report. All right, and completing the report, completing the SBA. You know, probably you wanted to do some more research on a different type of building style, but you could not find that much information on that. So because of that reason, now you know, that was a limitation and a constraint and stuff like that. So you talk about those, discuss those, and you get 2 marks for doing so. It's final design of project. So this is where your freehand sketches and your working drawings and stuff. Just for having all of those, and you know, you talk about them, talk about your sketches and your drawings and stuff, explain them, you get 4 marks for doing so. Communication of information in a logical way. So this is just how you go about using the English language in your report, and bringing across what you want to bring across in a very professional way. And if you do that, you will get your 5 marks for that. All right. Contents of the portfolio, just for having everything in the portfolio that should be in the portfolio, you get 8 marks. Contents were neatly organized, containing relevant materials for the task. So they're neat and everything, you get 6 to 8 marks. This is kind of outdated because the entire SBA is going to be, well, it's not outdated because the entire SBA is done in AutoCAD. So it's going to be printed and it's going to be in like your folder in your portfolio, which should be nice and binded and everything. So it should be neat, and once you have everything that you should have in your folder, you get 8 marks. Now the interactive presentation, I went through the presentation. So for having the presentation, you get a next 8 marks. All right, yeah, and that basically explains the IA and the mark scheme. And again, the report is one of the most important parts, and it's a report just like any other report. You have a problem statement, you write about how you'll go about solving the problem in the different paragraphs and so on, and then you have a closing paragraph to share like your findings and all of that stuff. All right, so that's how the grade 13 BMED IA is. Okay, so I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please drop a like on the video, and a subscription would be really nice, and you can tell somebody to subscribe as well. That would be very, very helpful. All right, so thank you for watching, and do have yourselves a fantastic day.